Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio here in our Health and Spirituality program. What a joy to have this means to communicate, to be with you. Remember, almost 10 years ago, this year, Kardec Radio is turning 11 years. We've been 10 years together, and we started by talking about this, about spirituality, about life continuum, about so much of us. And why do we do this? Because it's life. Do we need to stop everything we do to think about what life really is? Oh, yes. Kardec, in the Spirit's book, asked a question. How can we progress without making so many mistakes, avoiding wrongdoings? And the Spirit said self-knowledge. But self-knowledge, for us who are just passing by here in this reincarnation, is about life beyond this life. I would say it's the multidimensional perspective of us. How do we see ourselves? And little by little, humanity is awakening to the fact that there has been wonderful minds, thinkers, humanitarians, true mediums, and amongst them, Sheik Xavier. We have come to know, thanks to our friend, it's our common friend, Geraldo Lemos Neto. You know him, I know him. He's also a host at Kardec Radio. And he wrote to us a little while ago saying, well, Vanessa, you know, this group of friends have done a great job. They wrote an essay about mediumship as evidence of the afterlife. And they won an award. Yes, it's one of the winning essays in the Bigelow Institute in their latest venture, let's say this way. So 3 friends from Brazil. Who are they? You will see 2 of them. One of them is Alexandre Caroli Rocha. He graduated in the Portuguese language in the prestigious university in Brazil, Unicamp, the State University of Campinas. He also pursued his master's degree and doctorate degrees in history and literary theory, and he investigated notions of authorship in books related to the Brazilian medium, and many more. He was born in São Paulo, Brazil, and he always enjoyed many wonderful things like flying kites, swimming. So he's a person just like you and me. But there's a difference. He loves reading, he loves researching, he loves thinking. And together with the friend Marina Weiler, who is a neuroscientist from Brazil, she has a PhD in medical sciences from the Department of Neurology, and she used magnetic resonance imaging to understand the changes that Alzheimer's disease caused in the brains of patients. She came to the United States. She's currently in Baltimore, Maryland, working for UCLA, and she's now working and researching on consciousness and developing a project about out-of-the-body experiences. And another friend joined them, Raphael. Raphael is a medical physicist who holds a PhD in medical pathophysiology and has worked on the analysis of brain images from different patient groups with neurodegenerative diseases. He's currently trying to use machine learning to help on the planning of resective surgery in epilepsy patients. He has always been found of afterlife theme and participating in discussion groups about this topic since his childhood. What a group of friends, right? And they are so young. You look at them, you think, oh my gosh, no, they are young, and you see them now. As I introduced to you, our dear Marina and Raphael. How are you, Marina?
I'm good. Thanks, Vanessa, for inviting us.
What a joy to have you here, Marina. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you, Raphael, for joining us too. How have you been?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thank you for having us here today.
It's wonderful. It's so good to be here to talk about our common interest. And I know we have much to talk about the paper, the essay that you guys wrote together. But the main question I want to ask Raphael first, what made you decide to participate in this um, competition and write an essay about mediumship as an evidence for the afterlife? How did it happen?
So, as a team, I would attribute that to a common interest on the topic. Out of the three of us, only Alexandre, who couldn't be here today, had formally done research on this. So during his master's, for instance, as you mentioned in his introduction, he studied some of the deceased authors who have written poems that features in Sheik Xavier's first book, Poetry from Beyond the Grave. And during his PhD, he also investigated another deceased author, Humberto de Campos, who is quite popular among spiritists. So he had done that formally in the past. And Marina and I, at the time, we hadn't done a work directly related to it. We're both neuroscientists, and we have been working on neuroimaging data for a while, studying diseases of the nervous system. And so diseases like Alzheimer's, for instance, when you can see that patients sometimes show a compromise of the identity of the self. And from this point to the interest in studying the survival of consciousness, it wasn't much of a leap. So I think we had a background discussing these things, and then we got together and decided to participate on the contest.
Wow. But let me ask you a question. Who came to know of this? I mean, you're there living your lives, and then suddenly, who got to know of this, and who encouraged you to do it, or it was just the three of you that had the same idea? How did
Yeah.
it?
So it's. I think it kind of started when I read about the contest in a email group that I participate, and then I show it to Marina, and we were actually planning on writing something in a different line, but writing something about consciousness in a scientific journal. But then we thought that this could be an even better opportunity because the space was larger to write. So we had up to 25,000 words for the essay, so we could explore our ideas, our speculations. And normally for scientific papers, you have from 4,000 to 6,000 words. So it was a nice opportunity for us to do that. And then we decided to talk to a friend and see what he thought about this plan of writing the essay. And he said, you know what, maybe you should talk to Alexandre. And then as obedient kids, we got in touch with Alexandre, and he had heard about the contest as well. He was planning to write an essay on his own, but then we started talking, and the friendship started getting even better, and that was it. Then we got together, we wrote the essay, and we had the pleasure to be one of the awarded groups.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And the title of the essay, and I have it in front of me here, is Mediumship as the Best Evidence for the Afterlife. Sheik Xavier, a White Crow. It's amazing. It's like daring to do this in the world nowadays, to really present like mediumship as the best evidence. So Marina, would you like to tell us about this essay that you guys put together and how you made it so compelling that people were hooked, they bought into it?
Yeah. So at first, I just want to apologize. I've been sick for the last days, and I was pretty much in bed, and I'm all congested. But I'm coughing, but just
It's
it's okay.
okay. We
And
hope that the vibrations help you.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a cold weather here, and I got sick when I came. So yes, we decided to write about Chico Xavier. As Raphael said, when we first talked about writing the essay, which was January, February last year when they launched the contest, we were not very sure what would be the main topic of the essay. So we had two main ideas. We thought that, so the contest, they were asking about strong evidence of the afterlife. And thinking scientifically, we thought, okay, maybe the mediumship of Chico Xavier could be a very strong story. We also thought about writing about memories of previous lives in children, which is a very interesting field too. And we read a lot about that. We are very into that kind of research too. And then when we talked to Alexandre, and because he had a strong background doing research into Chico's writing and mediumship, and he studied a lot of his books, we were like, okay, we are from Brazil. We know a lot about Chico Xavier and his biography, and Alexandre did his background, his research, master's and PhD on Chico. Maybe we do have a good story here, compared to the other contestants. And as we were talking more about Chico's psychographies and reading all the information and digging into the information that was in his books and the letters and everything, we just said, okay, we have a good story here. This is a good evidence, and let's just write about it. And as we were writing the essay, and we became more familiar, as I said, with all the thousands of letters that Chico wrote to the families, with so much information on first names, last names, addresses, informations about the death, how the deceased died, or familiar issues, so much personal and private information. And also the books, the level of information that Chico put into his books, biological, historical, and just the theoretical, and it's just so much that as we were writing about Chico, we became more convinced we had a good story. So I think it was. That was. You were muted, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Thank you, friends. So it's so convincing, and it's so interesting, the structure, 68 pages. There's a summary, there's an introduction, because when we talk about essay, maybe people are thinking, oh, it's just a page long. No, it's like 68 pages. It's like a thesis, pretty much. And it's so interesting that you begin in the introduction talking about not a religion, not mysticism, and then you start talking and defining him. It goes to the core of the American life, like the white crow. William James was the one that researched on Piper, the medium, and he brought in this analogy, and you borrowed it to introduce Chico Xavier. I think this was so insightful, and presenting him as this in his excellence, and not only presenting the works, but also in another chapter you talk about the hypothesis that many people may come to talk about, the frauds, conscious, unconscious, the paranormal events, and you go one by one. It's when I read it, it gives me the feeling that I'm reading like Kardec, because he had that mindset. He would know what people would think, and he would address it. So did Kardec in any way, I'm sorry to ask you a question that was like random, but it came to me like, did you get inspired in Kardec's way of addressing these issues? Because it feels like it's the structure that he had when he was writing all his books.
I think Kardec had a very logical way of addressing topics at his time as well. I think he stands out as a person that was very detail-oriented. He thought about the words he was using when addressing, I don't know, something that was happening somewhere, and also considering alternative explanations for the phenomena. So I think he was very mature in that sense, in that scientific sense. So perhaps indirectly we were. It's hard to tell actually, because I think he was way ahead of me at that time. So it's flattering to be compared, to be part of that comparison. But I think this is more or less what we try to do when we're doing science. We're trying to be logical. We're trying to be very straightforward, objective with our analysis. So in a way, we try to keep that tradition, the scientific tradition, because somehow we are scientists, like in a very modest sense. We are in the beginning of our careers, but that's what we try to do in our professional lives. So yeah, I would say we perhaps unconsciously did that, but it's hard to say that we were not influenced by that, because we are a result of the stimuli that life gave us. So at some point when we read Kardec in the past, I think it also got into us.
And did you guys have any feeling like when you're writing, because Sheik Xavier is so big, like in his works, he used so many hats, you know, and it's like when you're writing, trying to focus on one part of his legacy, in this case, the mediumship it's in itself. We know he's not only a medium, he's a role model as a human being, as a humanitarian, as a family member, as a friend. We have stories after stories. And then you had to trim down to the mediumistic part of it. Where were the possible obstacles that you find when you had to present him as evidence for the afterlife? Were there any obstacles?
To obstacles to present him as an evidence?
Yeah, yes. Because, you know, for example, for us in Brazil, to talk about Chico is one thing. To talk about him to a crowd that doesn't know him, that hasn't seen anything, it's a completely different story, right? So it's like you had to see it through the eyes of others to tell the story that they would understand.
Yeah, and you know, Vanessa, we tried in as you said, like for us in Brazil, like everyone knows about Chico Xavier, and we know his lifestyle and his background and his not his biography into details, but we all know who Chico Xavier was. You know, we watched on TVs, and he was a famous person. And when we decided to write the essay, you were right. We had to do, okay, so how do we present Chico Xavier to the world? You know, like, so people in America or Europe, they don't know who Chico Xavier was. And we tried to compose a small biography when we were talking about the White Crow, because it is important when we are addressing our hypotheses of fraud or other things to give this background of how poor Chico Xavier was, how he grew up, all his background in the 30s, 40s, or 60s. Like, there were no computers. There was, of course, no internet. He had no access to big libraries, and he worked 10, 13 hours a day. And we had to present this background, and we thought this was important when we addressed all the alternative hypotheses. But I agree with you; it's very hard, and I don't think our essay tells much about Chico in these other aspects that you said, all his charities and all the work that he developed on humanities and helping people, we didn't have space on our essay to talk about who Chico was. So the question of the contest is, what is the best evidence for an afterlife? And when we thought about Chico, we thought, okay, he was a great medium. He had physical mediumship, like materializations and other types of precognition and other types of evidence. But we focused on the mental mediumship because it was just so much. He's written, he wrote more than 400 books, almost 10,000 letters, and everything is documented, well documented. And in terms of scientific research, this is very important. Everything is documented. So many people witnessed all these events, and there are so many interviews. So we focused on the mental mediumship because our story would be more robust in terms of scientific evidence. But I agree with you, Chico is a lot more than that.
Wow, it's amazing. And John DeRosa, our friend, he's asking, where can he find the paper? Is there a website? I have it here, the PDF, but I can pass it on to him. But for everybody else, where can they find? Is there a website?
Yeah, so all the essays, all the winning essays, they are
It's in the
available.
Bigelow Institute, right?
Yes, I can send you the link after the
Thank
interview,
you.
and maybe you can put as a comment to the
Yes.
video if that works.
Thank you. You were right. I remember now. You were right. There, we can find it, because I see, as John is asking, for people who are willing to study spiritism, to study spirituality, for example, reading your essay is a study for everybody. Because, for example, when you are talking about why is this not an unconscious or conscious fraud? Why is this not, simply a paranormal event? That specific part, besides when you present Chico Xavier himself in the mediumistic legacy, teaches anybody and everybody about how to think all of it through the lenses of a new paradigm. It's a new paradigm. I know lately many people are talking about creating a new paradigm to understand the human mind, and I see that piece of your essay as part of it, as helping us to understand the human mind beyond the limited ways we've been seeing. What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Vanessa. Well, maybe I should give one step back, because death is a reality. Death is a phenomenon in everything that lives on Earth. So death is not even only exclusive to spiritists, for instance. Everyone who is living here is going to die. So it's natural to think what happens afterwards. So if there is a way that we can address this question in an objective way, trying to think of the best evidence to look at it, I think that should deserve some of our effort. So my point, and not only for this particular aspect of our work, but for everything in our lives, it's good sometimes to have this more less emotional take on, because we may get nice lessons from it. So in this case, for instance, when we look to death with this perspective, with this objective perspective, we can learn so much. Like we were trying to do that, looking to Chico Xavier's work, and we learned so much about it, not only about the survival of consciousness, but also about the moral aspect of that. So it was kind of a consequence of it. And raising the hypothesis, so if it was a fraud or if it was something else like telepathy, raising this alternative hypothesis is very important also, because sometimes we may think that we know what's going on, but then we find out that it's not exactly what we were expecting it to be. So it's hard because it demands some mental energy, but it's an exercise, I would say, to incorporate this behavior in life. It's good. I think it's very good.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think it's a reason to study for those who are here with us and they are already spiritists or they are studying it, they want to know more. We've just posted here the link. We found the link, Raphael. So for those, we got the link for those who want to read your essay and all the other ones as well, but specifically this one because it teaches us the way to think through it, our reality. It's to see ourselves as immortal beings, right?
Yeah.
And Chico Xavier himself was not this medium just in a moment at the mediumistic meetings. The whole story tells us that he really understood that he is this multidimensional being 24/7, though under very strict discipline. And the secret to his success, of course, is humility, but a humility that led him to a very disciplined life and that encompass. People think of discipline something so dry and cold, but Chico Xavier was so loving and so friendly that he reinvents even the concept of discipline. So it's so interesting. I have another question here about when.
Vanessa, sorry, do you mind if I just interrupt you? Just
Sure,
because,
please go ahead.
yeah, your words were so good, and especially because you mentioned that we need to be humble and have this humility towards knowledge. So just to use that trigger, we don't claim to have the final word in our essay on these matters. So we're offering our contribution. It's our modest contribution to why we believe that mediumship is a good reason to say that consciousness can probably survive the bodily death. So, and other authors also did the same. So their essays are also a nice different perspective to address this issue. So we don't claim to be the bearers of the truth. We are just showing our vision on this. So our assessment from our perspective on this. So thank you for bringing that up, because we need to be on Earth talking about this realistically.
I know. Thank you so much. But it's interesting to know that we are at this time, and at this very time, your essay came to a certain highlight beyond Brazil, amongst people that haven't got to know of his works. And here at Kardec Radio, for example, all the friends, researchers, thinkers, or not spiritists per se, who come to know in all of our programs, they say how phenomenal it is, to the point that Dr. Gary Schwartz, who is still a renowned researcher in the field, he said to us once live at Kardec Radio, it's all recorded, we can go back and check. He said, if we read these books by Chico Xavier, especially André Luiz books, he says, we can envision protocols, seeing the end of the line on how to get there. It's phenomenal. Somebody who doesn't know the whole 9 yards of Spiritism already understood it. And a while ago, we had interviews here with several researchers and thinkers, and they repeat to us how, like, for example, Dr. Stephen Post was saying, I am much like Kardec, he said last week. I'm much like Kardec because I understand that life is much more than it is. So it's fascinating to see that we are aiming all together at the same direction. But bringing Chico Xavier to this perspective as mediumship, as evidence for the afterlife, is so compelling that it's hard not to say hands down, no question about it. And were there, when you were there, I don't know if you were in person, I saw a video of the first prize winner. Were you there in the meeting in Vegas when they were introducing the award? Were you guys there? Yeah? Both of you?
Yes, both of us. We went to the ceremony award, which was in Las Vegas on December the 4th.
Yeah.
Alexandre, the other author, unfortunately couldn't make it. His overseas and visa issues and things like that. But we were there for the award. It was very nice. Yeah.
How was it for you, Marina, for you guys, when you were in a non-spiritist crowd and they were acknowledging all of this that you brought to the plate? What were their questions, their comments to you? How was it?
Okay, so just one detail. We didn't actually make a speech during the award.
I know.
Yeah, only the 3 winners, so first, second, and third winner, they gave a speech and people were asking them questions. For us, I think not during the award, but before the award, we had an opportunity to meet the other winners, and it was interesting because, as we said, no one knows who Chico is, and they were interested in learning more about. Some of them Googled, I Googled this medium and it's crazy. Yes, he did all of this and all his background and all the books that he wrote. And they were actually interested in learning who Chico was. So I think it was more, the other winners were more interested in, so who is this person that you guys are talking about? Like, we've never heard about this guy. Who is he? So I think it was more towards this aspect.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. Raphael.
Maybe my comments will be totally irrelevant, but for me it was really good because the ceremony was in the Bigelow Institute. Oh. And I like astronomy. So for me, it was really nice to be there. Like, they develop pods so there is the International Space Station, and Bigelow had a contract with NASA to develop one of the pods that was attached to the International Space Station. And a replica of that pod was there at the ceremony. So for me, just this experience was really nice. So totally relevant, sorry, but it was very impressive to me.
It was an out of space experience for you.
Exactly. So I guess everything was really cool over there. It was nice to be in touch with other researchers to learn more about the other people that also participated in the contest, because in the end of the day, we only saw their picture on the website and read their parts of their essays because they were too long. We didn't have time to finish all the reading before the ceremony, but that was all we knew about them. So it's nice to meet the people behind the work. I normally like to see that because they're humans. We are all humans. So it's nice to see that as well. And as Marina said, I think it was a very friendly space. Everyone was really nice, and it was good to start having a conversation with people from different cultures as well. I don't know. It was a very nice experience from my perspective, I think.
That's interesting. And did that experience give you more, like, because I know when we go to these meetings, we get also inspired to do more. And I know it's not your main field of research, and yet you're into this now. Does that mean you guys are gonna do more together? What is the next step?
Marina, do you wanna start?
So, as you said, this is not our main research. This is not the research we're involved to. We work with imaging and neurosciences, and this is just our passion. This is something in parallel we do, and we have discussions groups and we read about it. So of course, I think none of us will never stop reading and studying about this. just because this is our passion. And when we do things for passion, it becomes natural learning about it. The Bigelow Institute, during the award ceremony, they actually told us they want to keep pursuing research on this topic. So they have plans to do more research on that. They also told us they're going to put the authors in contact to each other to form small discussion groups on bringing new research, new topics. I think Robert Bigelow is very interested in continuing the research in the afterlife, in human consciousness. So I think new and interesting things are coming for 2022. They also told us they're going to publish the 29 winning essays into hard copy books, hardcover books. So I think it would be like 6 or 7 volumes, and they're going to distribute to universities and churches and hospitals, because he really wants to spread the idea. So I think it's a nice thing he's doing. And I'm writing projects on the out-of-body experience, as you mentioned, so I want to become closer and closer into this topic. So I want to do this as my main research. I'm not doing that yet, but I intend to do more and more research into the topic. And I think the Big's essay was very important for us in these terms, to knowing the other authors and what kind of research is being developed into this topic, and what can we do to continue researching into this topic. So I think it was a very important first step for our careers.
Yeah, it's amazing. John DeRosa wants to know more. He wants to know, at the award ceremony or after the release of the paper, has there been any feedback that the paper changed people's minds about the existence of the afterlife? Good question.
Yeah, it's a nice question, but I haven't received any feedback from that yet. Maybe because it's very long, so people are still reading and digesting the information. But I haven't heard about it. I know that has been the word is out, so people are aware that the contest happened, but I'm not sure of the real effects that were probably. I don't know. I don't know if anything is.
I think it's going to be very important for people seeing that so many researchers, so many researchers with a good background are doing serious research into the topic, and I think it is actually definitely going to change something. I do have it's just a small story, but I can share with you.
Sure.
So when we were writing the essay and we finished writing the essay, I sent. I was looking for someone to proofread before we submitted to the contest, and then I sent to my previous boss that I used to work with, and he doesn't believe in anything like that, So I told him, and he writes very well. I really admire his writing. He's American. And then I sent to him and I said, "Hey, can you have a look? Can you proofread and give us some ideas?" And then the first thing he said was like, "What? You found 25,000 words in something that doesn't exist?" And that made me laugh at the time, because I know it's his way of thinking. And I just laughed and I said, "Oh, okay, you'll see when we get the award." And then when we got the award, I told him, "Hey, we got the award. Look at that. See, you were mocking me, you were laughing." And then he read our essay and he thought, "Wow, this is really interesting." And he was one of the persons that Googled Chico. And he was so into Chico after he read our essay, and he's looking for his biography now, and maybe I think he was going to read some of his books too. And he was so impressed by Chico's life and productions and books. And he said, I think you guys have a very strong point in your essay. And he thought it was very good. And I saw he was like, I kind of get your point, and maybe I believe a little bit more now, I saw that's little spark when I talked to him. And other people that I've just lab mates that I talk about, that we wrote the essay. So another lab mate, a friend, she said, oh no, I don't believe in any of this afterlife, And then after I talked about our essay, she also read not only our essay, but the other winners contest. And she was so fascinated. And she was like, wow, I think you are going to change my mind, Marina. And I said, I don't want to change anyone's mind. This is just an invitation to see what's out there and what people are researching. And you believe whatever you want to believe. We are not, as Raphael said, we don't know the truth. We are just inviting people to read what's there and be open-minded. And she opened her mind, which was really nice to see. So I think this is the best gift we can get with this essay. Like, we don't want people believing or not in the afterlife. We want people opening their minds to reading new things and having healthy discussions. We could be wrong. Let's just sit down and talk about it, and have a nice and friendly conversation. And so I think this is the best present we can get out of this contest. You are muted, Vanessa.
You guys are so courageous, because I think we're coming at a time when people like you, who live a life like everybody else, but naturally share what you think, what you know, that is what we need more in this world nowadays. Because being in the United States for 24 years, I've come to the conclusion that people will only know of it if we talk about it. It seems simple, not quite. But doing what you did, talking to colleagues, just sharing thoughts, because people can talk nonsense and it's fine. But when we talk about things that really matter, people are very sensitive. And you're not imposing, you're just sharing. You are just giving people an opportunity to think, how will people know if we don't share, if we don't talk about it? And finding ways, that's communication, right? To put something in common with other people. So vital. I was telling my daughter the other day, did you know, Virginia, she's only 8. I say, if you know something and you don't publish, that's the rule in science. It doesn't happen, it didn't happen. It may be the greatest discovery, but if you don't communicate about it, it doesn't exist.
It's a dead idea, right?
Right?
Like, you need to spread your ideas. Yeah.
Yes. So I think what you guys are doing is going to that direction. You unveiled something. You put it together in a format that people who don't understand may understand it. Like, for example, the people at the very contest, they were thinking about the different ways of proving that the afterlife exists. Well, there are. That's a sure thing. Near-death experiences, memories from previous lives, etc., birthmarks, and etc. But mediumship, certainly, as presented by you through the case of Sheik Xavier, is undoubtedly something nobody has ever presented in that way. So I think your essay is a reference to us, to everyone who wants to know, who wants to begin to know, to say the least. And though it's 68 pages, it's very well summarized for the much that Sheik Xavier represents. And I love the way you guys wrapped up the beginning, the way you guys started such a well-written piece of research, and it ends by saying, and allow me just to read this final paragraph, just so the viewers feel how compelling it is and how important it is for us to enter this mindset and cherish it. The main reason, they say, the main reason we can think of is the general misunderstanding regarding the words science and religion and their supposed opposite nature. At this point, we hope that the reader understands that science is a way of investigating the world based on observations and facts, not as a position regarding a topic. So to say that science rejects the afterlife does not make sense. Science is not an entity and does not accept or reject anything. Scientists do based on observational and experimental evidence. Religion and mysticism, in turn, are sets of beliefs that consider the afterlife. Not that these topics are also presented in some books and letters written by Sheik Xavier. The survivalist hypothesis, however, does not imply religion nor mysticism. They are independent of one another. Once we understand these concepts, we recognize that the afterlife can and should be investigated in a scientific manner. Unfortunately, many scientists struggle to understand it, defending their view of reality against any outside contender. The class of observations discussed in this essay challenges and causes discomfort to some physicalists who, driven by their own expectations, think these facts do not match their worldview. It is science made backward. It is one's point of view dictating the facts. The problem with mediumship censors is not that they believe too much in science, but that they do not believe in it enough. Hence, from a scientific perspective, we believe that Xavier and his life's works are the best answers to the questions posed in this essay. It's so elegant, the reasoning, and the way you guys present the discussion. It's beyond just making a case for a man, for a philosophy of life. It's beyond it. It's about the human mind. That's how I see it. And I'll tell you the truth, when I was reading this, I could almost hear we having this in an audio format at Kardec Radio's SoundCloud playlist, so people can listen to your essay and learn from you. What do you guys think? Would that be cool?
It would, yes. So,
Right.
yeah, we need somebody with a beautiful voice to do that. And,
John DeRose is here. He's the man. He's the man. Right, John? You tell us what you think, because he's the one. You know, John DeRose, he's here in Virginia with us. But for 3 years, he and a friend from Pennsylvania, Steve Shepard, they record the whole Spirits book by Kardec. And John DeRosa made the voice of Kardec. So he's used to doing that. And if he is up to the project, he is, you see, he says yes.
Oh, nice. So see, we have a project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Project.
And you bet, pretty soon, right, John? Let's talk about it, how we're going to make this happen. But I think that it's going to make people get their hands on it faster than we imagine, and the world's going to be spread out because people are used to this type of media, right? If reading in this fast-paced society is not a too much of everybody's cup of tea, then let's give them in another format,
Right.
right?
An audiobook.
Exactly.
It's a very good idea, Vanessa. I don't think we haven't thought about that. So we are translating our essay to Portuguese because we don't want the language to be a barrier, especially for Brazilian people, that know about Sheik Xavier. But this idea of actually making an audiobook is a very good idea, and I think some people prefer to, when they're driving, just to be hearing the story. Thank you for having this idea.
Yes, we have here Carol Correa, who is writing through Kardec Radio, and she's saying how eloquent and convincing it is. She's a faculty at the University of Delaware, and she's also a spiritist here, host at Kardec Radio. I want to share something else. I remember when at the University of Maryland in Baltimore, a student of mine, she was doing research in our lab, and she was also a dental student. She got to know of what we do, like we're spiritists, we do all these works, the radio, blah, blah, blah. And she came to me very respectfully, though. She said, Dr. Anseloni, what do you think of people who believe in the afterlife? And reading your last paragraph, it brings me back how I talked to her. I said, science never proved it wrong. So it's still a hypothesis. We still have room to investigate. That's how I addressed it, because I said, I'm not going to share my personal point of view because we are in the sacred temple of university here. It's not about our personal opinion or personal experience. But I said, scientifically speaking, there's nothing that proves it wrong. It's still open for investigation, for research, for understanding. So as scientists, it's valid. We just need to do more work to have a final take on it. Of course, personally, I don't believe, I just know. We know. It's just we know. But beyond our personal thing, science still has a lot of room for it. But research on reincarnation has enough evidence already, published in many papers. So there is much that is happening out there, and it's just about more and more people joining in. And I see recently, and since you guys are in touch with so many other researchers, especially in Brazil, who has this wonderful group of scientists like Alexandre Moreira in Juiz de Fora, Humberto Coelho, and so many others who are committed to doing this elegant research on all these different aspects of the multidimensional being that we are. When you talk to some of them, though I know it's not your main research, and you want to little by little probably gravitate to it, do you see more of it spreading out to the world as well? This type of research beyond the Brazilian crowd?
That's another good question. It's hard to. I think there are. Well, you are in Virginia, so the University of Virginia has a strong tradition in investigating children who remember, who claim to have memories of a past life. So I think there are approaches to this problem, but not exactly. I'm not sure if that was the question behind, but I don't think they're approaching this as a spiritist question.
No.
They are investigating this as a phenomena that happens in society. So I think that's the way things work in science. We need to look at things as part of the natural life and see what is the best explanation for them. And that's interesting that you brought something up, Vanessa, which is the concept of proof, because maybe this may be a misconception in the way we use the word proof in our lives, because we tend to see something as proven or that it hasn't been proven. But I guess the idea in science is that you accumulate evidence in favor of something or not. We normally see proof in science more consistently in mathematics, for instance, that you can use the rules that they use in the game of mathematics to prove if something is really or not. I don't know, if square root of 2 is irrational, for instance. There is a proof for that. I remember this was something that I learned in the beginning of in my course at the university. So it was funny to me to see that being proved. But the way we look at that in the other sciences that are not logical as mathematics is a bit different. It's a bit different than what we do in mathematics or in logics, for instance.
Yeah.
We try to accumulate evidence. So it's also important to highlight that so people can judge for themselves, like, is there an accumulation of evidence that supports the hypothesis that consciousness survive? If there is, then it makes this a stronger explanation for the phenomena. So this is more or less the way we frame the questions in science. So there is a different framework to work that. And this is something we try to make clear in the beginning of the essay. It's a very small and modest explanation of the rules of science, in this game of science, but it's a way, it's necessary to tell why we think that from the scientific perspective, Sheik Xavier's work is an evidence in favor of the survival of consciousness.
Yes. It's amazing. And you know what, fascinating as we're wrapping up, unfortunately, but I hope to have more of you in the future. It's in a world where so many are suffering. In the United States alone, we cannot lose sight that almost 1 million people have already died of COVID. We've reached the 900,000 deaths, at least the ones that were recorded by it. And this research comes at a time when humanity is crying out in pain. And for those who are out there coming across this, it brings new hope, brings new consolation, new ways of thinking to also feel better. So I think this research, I know it's scientific, but the basis of it all is human. It's to tell the human mind that really life goes on and we are more than just the eyes can see. I think I would like to pass the word to the both of you in your own turns so you can share a final comment with those who are here with us. And as human as we all are, the evidence that life goes on really brings new perspective to our pains and sufferings today. Marina, would you like to share something? A final thought, please.
Yeah, I think you're right, Vanessa. It is. It's about when we decided to write about the Xavier's mediumship. As we talked before, Xavier is a lot more than that. It's about humanities. It's about human. It's about his charity work that he's done, of such a good man he was. And once you start reading his biographies and his work, you understand the whole that Xavier was. I think that's a very good learning we had during for the essay. Raphael can share some personal stories too. It changed us a lot, researching about the afterlife, not only because the afterlife, believing or not in an afterlife, is the backbone of our decisions, so it's the way of how we see life. So believing or not, or being spiritual, having spirituality or not, is pretty much the backbone of your life. So doing research into the afterlife topic not only changed us in this aspect, but also getting to know more about Xavier's life and how much of a good man he was. and he taught us a lot on this aspect too, just leading by example of how he lived his life, for the others, and helping the poor people and charities, and it just gives us a very good example on how to live our lives.
Thank you, Marina. Raphael.
Vanessa, well, Marina knows this, but I'm a fan of Sheik Xavier. I guess I would just say everything she said, because to me, every time I read something new about Chico, it was just an example of how a great man he was. And starting from nothing, he was from a poor family in the countryside of a small city in Brazil. He didn't have, like, he was not a rich person, but from nothing he did so much, so many people that he helped, so many charity initiatives that he helped. And this, independently of people believing or not in the afterlife, I guess this is the best lesson that we can get. I don't care what you believe, just treat people well, just do the best that you can to society, just make your community a better place to live, just be a good person at your school. I don't know, I think this message, the behavioral message, I think that's brilliant. Chico didn't need to do the analysis that we did. He was so much better. He wrote all that he wrote. So he was a very productive writer, probably one of the most productive writers in the world, and he was a great person. And it was very impressive to me that there was a TV show here in Brazil, Pinga Fogo, dropping fire. Not sure if that translation makes sense in English, but I remember somebody talking to him, and with all that background that he had, he said that he was a subworm, so he wouldn't even consider him as an example. He was even inferior than a worm, and he did so much, and he was saying that it was inferior than a worm. That was very touching, because we see people here that they don't do anything, and they think so high of themselves. So this was a lesson to me, I guess. This was an impressive message that really changed the way I behave in some situations in my life.
That's adorable. You guys are so much good in the world. We have to say this because I know everyone who is here is probably going to join me now. Kindly blessing you guys for this wonderful hard work, because it's not simple to write such an elegant essay at a critical time on earth when humanity needs so much hope, so much consolation, so much new thinking to clear the minds of the old, of the conditionings of the past, to open a new path. So I want to thank Alexandre, who could not be here, you, Marina, you, Raphael, and I know everybody here at Kardec Radio would love to give you a virtual hug of gratitude for being here with us today and for doing this phenomenal work. We hope that you keep being inspired and has strength and the courage that you guys have to keep on being instruments of the good, a true inspiration, as Carol Correa is saying here, and she uses this expression that Emmanuel says, press on. Yes, let's press on, Carol. That's what we're doing, right? Nora is here as well. She's from Texas. She's saying, thank you, Nora, for joining us. Thank you, friends. So we hope to have more of you soon, sometime in this year, so we can have more. And let's be in touch, okay, Marina, Raphael? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, friends. So right now, as we are here wrapping this up, we want to tell you, thank you, friends. You see how much work we need to do? Yeah, my sleeves are rolled because, there's no time to relax. You guys join us. Kardec Radio is all 100% volunteer based, and we always need a helping hand. If you think you can help in any way here at the Spiritist Magazine, just write to us at kardecradio@gmail.com, because we need more hands to put all these works and much more into action. We thank you, friends, for being here with us today, and we hope you stay tuned at Kardec Radio, because here we are always nourishing our souls. Thank you, friends.